So one of our next projects is going to be putting bump stops above this axle. I've done a little measuring and stuff up here. You can see I put some lines. End up having to rattle can those off. But it came with these stock bump stops that sat up here on the frame. But I want to change the distance. I don't want it to go up as high before it hits the bump stop. So you can see I've marked 3 1/4 down from this line. And that's going to be to this line, which is about 1 inch below the, if you can see that, 1 inch below the top plate. So, well, I'm sorry, I take that back. 3 1/4 to the back of this, and then another inch. And I don't really expect it, if it's ever down on the bump stops, to crush this more than to that 1 inch line, so that there's still always 1 inch between. So it's going to be down, I'm going to get this tape measure in a reasonable range. So I'm planning on that being the center line of the bump stop. And then it's going to be down 3 1/4. So right in there somewhere. So it'll sit somewhere in that range. And then we'll still have about 3 inches to what I'm calling maximum crush depth, I guess maybe is the way to say it. And I've been playing with this axle trying to get it right. I think it's going to be about 1 inch lower than it is, so then that would realistically give us about 4 inches of, of distance between the axle and the bump stop. So I guess 3 inches from the top of the axle to probably this bottom edge of the bump stop, and then 4 inches from the axle to that line that I'm going to call the maximum amount is going to crush this bump stop down. So we just need to make a piece of angle that's going to come down and then go in, and then we'll mount this to the bottom of that piece of angle. And then I'm thinking we fasten it to the side with a couple of bolts. I'll probably run it up higher so I can put a couple bolts up here. And I'm trying to decide if I want to push it on the inside or on the outside. I'm leaning towards outside. It used to sit right under the frame, so it would come down and hit inside of the U-bolts. But I'm thinking if I put it on the outside, well, I don't know. It might be close to hitting that U-bolt. I was kind of thinking I could get it to hit right between these U-bolts down here. But then I guess I got to push it off quite a ways. So yeah, we're probably going to stick with the inside. So the piece of angle will come down this side and then turn and go in. And then the bump stop that we have will mount on the bottom. And I'm kind of thinking I'll probably hammer this little S-curve thing flat because it sits in a hole in the one end, which I don't really care to drill. And then this end, I'll probably cut some of it off. And then I think I'm just going to weld this nub and this end to the bottom of that piece of angle, because honestly, I don't really see myself ever taking it off and changing it. And if I do, I can always take the 2 bolts out of the frame, take the whole bracket off, and then get an angle grinder and cut the bump stop off and come up with something new. But I'm guessing if I ever change them, I'm probably not going to be reusing stock bump stops. So at that point, I'll be coming up with something else anyway. So, all right, let's see if we can put that together. All right, so I drew up a plan. I thought I'd let you guys look at the dog yard and the mongrels. What are you doing, Tina? What, Tina McTina? I see you. Anyway, my wife did a great job cleaning up the backyard and getting all that fluff picked up. Good job, Mrs. Nate. And I did my part by scrubbing out their water tank, what I call the dummy's bathtub. The dummy's hiding over here under he's right there. I call him the dummy. He doesn't know any different. I scrubbed out the dummy's bathtub and their water tub, the other water tub that they drink out of. So they're nice and clean. So anyway, we're going to build this bracket. And not exactly proportional, but close. So 4 3/4 high, 4 inches wide. I tried to draw it 3-dimensional. So this piece down here, let me draw that in, 2 1/4 going off half cocked here. All right, so then 2 1/4. Of course, this will be that 4 inches. And then we've got a gusset here, but this is going to sit under the frame, so this can only come up about 2 inches to fit, because the frame rail is going to be right along here, kind of coming out, the bottom of it coming out this way. Otherwise, I could go way up in here somewhere to support it better, but whatever twisting flex is going to be right along here. So I left 1 1/4 on top, and I forget what that is. So 2 inches, that's 2 3/4 left. So then there's about 1.5 inches down here. So you got 1 1/4 inches, 1.5 inches. So these bolts are pretty close to the center of like where the frame's going to be running across here. So hopefully that'll help support it better. Hopefully it won't bend right there when I bottom it out. I guess we'll find out. So here's the, get it right side up here. Here's the rough dimensions. Of course, holes, they're going to be 1/2 inch. 1 inch here, 3 inches there, 1 inch there, 1 1/4 here. I didn't write this measurement, but whatever. And of course, the sizing of the plate. So that's the back plate. Then the bottom plate is going to be 4 inches by 2 1/4. And then my gusset's going to be 2 inches by 2 inches. So it'll come about 1/4 inch shy here, which I like to do. So when I'm welding, I can go all the way around that gusset. And I don't show it, but usually I will cut, I will cut this corner out, because what'll typically happen, I'll show you on the other side here. It'll typically happen in assembly when I'm welding this inside joint along here. I'll weld the length of that, then I'll put my gusset in. And if I leave this corner in, then it hits that weld. So if you cut that out, or maybe even a little bit more, sometimes I'll get a little bit more drastic. If you cut that out, then you don't have to worry about bumping into that weld. So yeah, we'll get the pieces cut out. I think I'm going to use 3/16 steel. I have some, I guess it's technically flat stock, but it's like 8 inch 3/16 that I've had for a long time, so I need to use that up. So anyway, let's get to it. Row! 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 Little Tina comes running out of the doghouse. Their entrance into the back room of the house is like right over there off camera. So they come running out to see what's going on. What are we barking at? Anyway, so we'll cut it 4 inches this way. And then 8 inches this way. Use my big square here. Make sure we get close. And that marker works great. Not really at all. That one goes in the garbage. Try this one. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And one more time, please. Start on this one. So, first one goes together something like this. There's two of them. Probably just gonna get some rattle can paint, but I think they turned out okay. All right, so here's what I came up with. I moved that line from the 3 1/4 to the 4 3/4 mark, and we can still see the center there. So I should be able to just put this up here. And honestly, I'm just going to kind of approximate the center. I don't think it's that big a deal. Well, you know what? Looking at that axle, well, and I got it the wrong way around. Huh. So I think what I'm going to do instead is just look at the axle down here. You can't see. I'll show you here in a second. I'm going to say it's going to land right in there somewhere. So we want our holes to be right there. All right, so I'm just looking at where we're at with the axle. Let me move you guys. So I'm just going like that. The axle is going to come forward a little bit more as it comes up, maybe a 1/4 inch or something, I'm guessing. So I have set it forward just a little bit, but I think that'll work. So I'm going to kind of mark the center of those holes. We're going to wait on that one. And I just resharpened my 1/2 inch bit, so it should cut pretty well. Oh yeah. So I'm going to use one grade 5, then I'm going to use one just regular old zinc. I'm not even sure what grade they are. I'm guessing either no grade or, you know, like a grade 1 or something like that. Thinking about getting this where I want it and going ahead and tighten that nut down, that bolt down. Yeah. Christmas. Ugh. Bulletproof caps, check. So yeah, right now it looks like, oh, 2 different fasteners. What the heck, man? I'll put another little layer of black on it. Yeah, there we go. Don't mind that run. Nobody cares about that. All right, let's get the other side done. So on this side, I've had to get a little more creative and modify my plate so that it fits in there. These tabs have gotten in the way for the second time. Kind of regretting putting them on there. I should have just put a flat washer or something under the bolt. So I got it held up here. Ignore the line in the background, because where I really need this thing is over in here somewhere, but that's really not going to work. So it's going to have to go in between here and just be kind of angled a little bit. Well, I was thinking I could notch those corners out and bolt it on there, but I forgot. there's stuff back behind here, that side-to-side cross member. So instead, we're going to weld it on, and yeah, call that good. Thank you. Oh yeah. I don't think the paint likes it too well. But yeah, it'll work. I'm actually kind of glad I had those holes drilled in it, because I just went ahead and welded them full. And I feel like it's better connected now in those spots. So we'll have to wire brush it and let it cool and then hit it with some paint. All right, well, my neighbor's running the leaf blower, but there's what we got. I think it'll do the job. Next project is going to be installing this leveling valve, this air leveling valve, or suspension leveling valve. If you look at it, you'll see it has numbers marked on it. So I was doing some testing. I got it off of eBay or Amazon, I don't remember. But it came with no directions. But my understanding of these valves is you've got one place that air comes in, which in this instance appears to be number 1. And then you've got a place that air goes out, which appears to be this 21. I don't know if you can see that. So air comes in here, and then depending on where there's an arm that goes in here. Depending on where that arm's at, the orientation of this valve, it decides if it puts air out or lets air back. And then on this end, there's a little exhaust port or whatever. So if the truck's really low, like the airbags are completely empty, it'll let air come in and go here, filling the airbags until this dials to the right position and says, oh, that's the right height. Stop there. But then if the truck's too high, this will come back down, and at that point it lets the air from the airbags back and go out this vent. So it kind of controls the height of the truck as it changes, like as your load changes or whatever. And then there's a third port over here that's marked 22, and I'm thinking that is if you provide air to this, it opens the airbags, the valve on the airbags, and lets you dump the air out of the airbags. But I want to use the full range of the suspension, so we're not going to use that. I'm going to come up with my own valving to adjust the height of the truck. So anyway, I've kind of looked at this already, and I've decided we're going to put this exhaust valve down. And I think right here, right in this area somewhere, I'm going to put a piece of angle or a piece of flat stock, I haven't really decided, but something I can bolt this onto. And then the rod will come out this way, and then it'll go down and attach to the axle. And then when the axle comes up, it'll open this valve, putting more air into the bags until the frame rises off the axle to the right spot, which will adjust this back. Then it'll stop putting air in, and vice versa. If it goes too high, it'll go the other direction and let air back out of the system. So yeah, we'll see if we can weld a bracket and get this mounted. I think I'm probably just going to plug off that 22, but then we can start plumbing this up. Feel the land with smoke. That looks pretty good. State cries big game. Better run through the jungle. Hard on good paint, man. Alright, I think I found the perfect link bolts. My dogs are going to be obnoxious now. Oh yeah, now we're talking. For anyone curious, there's room between here because this bar is going to come up and down a little bit, but there's also like 6 inches of space between the differential and the valves, so I don't think that's going to come up more than about 2 inches higher than where it's at, the differential that is. So should be in good shape. It'll be interesting to see how this works out. So as I mentioned before, this leveling valve didn't come with any instructions, so I'm just making this up as I go. It came with all these parts and pieces. I put them together. Hopefully that's the right way. It's like one rod has some pins in it, some washers, and then a clamp. These black pieces are rubber, by the way, so I guess those are supposed to work as like pivot points for the setup. And then I'm thinking this is what goes on the bottom, on the axle. Focus. Focus. There we go. Worthless bastard. There we go. So I'm thinking this goes on the bottom on the axle, so then the whole thing sits, so this end goes in the valve, the wheel on the back of that valve right there, and then this goes on the axle, and then whenever the axle comes up, it articulates this, turning the valve where my left hand is, and I guess that's how it works. Now I'm not sure how to set the distance from the valve here. I'm thinking the closer you go, like the more action you're going to get. I'm trying to think if that actually is right or not. I think so. Maybe it doesn't even matter. I thought I read online in a forum somewhere that the closer you get to this upright arm, the more air you use, because it's bouncing up and down a lot more, and it's turning that valve a lot more. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that would be right. Because if you were clear back here, an inch here would be less degrees than if you were up here. An inch here would be more degrees of turn. And then the other length down here, this will be the part going down to the axle. This, I think, you just adjust this for ride height. So if you want it to ride higher or lower or higher, whichever way. So we're still going to need to put something on the axle, tack something onto the axle that this will bolt into. But yeah, I think it's pretty much there. It came with some clamps that I assume are supposed to go on this rubber. It only came with 2 clamps, so I don't know. Then this part here that goes on the axle, actually, let me pull that out. I can show you. Well, maybe. Oh, good. At least it's difficult to get out. So this piece has like a, I don't know what you call that in it, a recess cut into it, I guess. And that seems to latch, I think, in between there. So I guess that's supposed to help keep this from pulling out. So, yeah, pretty easy. I hope that's how it's supposed to work. I thought about putting a little grease in there, but I don't know if I want it to be able to come out any easier. So we're just gonna leave it like it is. So yeah, let's see what we can do on the axle. All right, so just kind of laying it out, you can see it goes into this wheel, I'm gonna call it, that it adjusts the valve. And then it comes across and then goes down. And then down here, I think we're just gonna put another piece of flat stock and weld it onto the top of the axle. And then this can bolt into that. I hate these caps. Ugh. I just spray it until it's good and runny. All right, let's see if we can put this back on there. I think I'm gonna want this kind of in pretty far. I'm sure you're looking at the back of my head. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. Now we're just gonna have to get our range this way and our range up and down. So for temporary air, I've got this Schrader valve put in the top, and then I've got an air line with a locking valve chuck. So it'll just clip on there and hold. That'll put air into here, and then one of these 2 sides, the air is going to come out. I forget which one's which, but we'll find out. So hopefully you guys can kind of see what we're doing here. You can tell that air blows out. So I'm thinking the axle is going to be about an inch lower, an inch to inch and a half lower than what it currently is. So we're going to want to run that. We're going to run this rubber up to about right there on the rod. So I'm going to slide this out again so I can do this a little easier. Ay, ay, ay. Sorry, I know you guys can't see. Man, it does not want to slide. Maybe if we twist it a little bit and push. There we go. It's not happy about it. All right, I'm thinking in there somewhere. Yeah. I'm liking that. Yep, I think that's going to be real close. So I'm going to unhook my air up at the top so it's not making noise the whole time. Then we'll slide this thing in there one more time. Maybe. There we go. Then I'm going to go ahead and put this on. All right, so I think it's going to be something like that. I think that looks pretty good. This top part, I'll have to figure out where I want it, but I want to make sure, let's see, as this goes up or the axle comes down or vice versa, I don't want the end of this to get caught on the frame, so we're probably going to have to stay in a little bit, somewhere in there probably, just as an estimate. And then there's a nut up here that you, or a bolt rather, that you can tighten, that'll tighten down on this this rod, and then it'll keep it from sliding. And then once we eventually get it on the ground and do the fine tuning on the height, then we'll have to tighten down these hose clamps, and theoretically that'll hold everything nice and tight together. So then I'll probably come back, I don't know, I might cut this rod off, or maybe I'll just leave it so that if I use it on something else ever, you know, if this truck gets wrecked in a month and I decide to take this off and put it on a different truck, I can do that. So anyway, let's tighten that top up. All right, so now we just have to decide where we want this rod side to side. I'm gonna say, I mean, probably right in there, and then tighten down this bolt. I think it's like a 10, some metric something. I don't know how tight I can go without stripping it out. There. Then the valve came with these 1/4-inch plastic plugs, so I'm just going to stick them back in, make sure no bugs try to crawl into the body of the valve, the ports of the valve, however you say it. So yeah, all right, that one should be done. We should be back to the races. Let me give you a shot from the back so you can see what it looks like from the back. There you go. So like I say, I don't know, I might cut off that extra rod sticking down behind the axle because I don't really need it. We'll see how it goes, but I think it looks pretty good. The rod's pretty much directly upright, and then the one going across is going to be slightly down once it actually levels the axle up. So yeah, I'd say that'll work. So we're going to do some what should have been bench testing, but I've already got it mounted to the truck on this leveling valve. What I've done is I've tied in air supply from my air tank, comes in here, then it tees off 2 directions. One direction it goes to the, what I believe is the in valve, air in valve on, air in port on the valve. And then one of these 2 is going to be the air going out to the airbags. And then I believe the other one, whichever one, is going to be to dump the airbags if it gets air pressure. So I'm not sure, we'll have to figure out which one's which. But basically what I'm going to do is whichever one is the dump valve, I'm going to hook this to. So we'll say it's this one. So I'm going to hook the end in like that. And then I've got a valve here, a hand valve, tied to our main air coming in. So I can simulate putting pressure to that port, which presumably should dump the airbags. Now to simulate the airbags, I'm going to have an air tank that'll plug into one of the other ports. And I'm going to run the air tank, which you can kind of see it. It's a modified propane tank. But I'm going to put about 30-40 pounds of air in the tank. And then this valve has a exhaust port on the bottom of the valve. So we should be able to hear when it's exhausting air. So I'm going to hook all this up. Well, first we're going to find out which port the airbags, aka the air tank, needs to be hooked to. Then we'll hook that up. I've got a quick connect that I'm going to put in. We'll say if it's this side. I'm just going to thread it in there because I'm guessing it's that side. Then I've got a quick connect on the air line on my tank, my auxiliary air tank. So I'll clip that on. Then I'm going to play with the height of, I'm going to disconnect this at the axle, and I'm going to play with the height for the leveling and see if I can get it to put air into the tank, which I know I can do, or if I can get it to let air dump out of the tank. And then we're also going to put air to the other port, if these are backward, whatever. We're going to put air to one of the two ports and see if that causes it to dump air out of the tank, aka dump air out of the bags. All right, so I'm gonna move this tank. We're just gonna disconnect it right here. Should be easy enough. Come on, there. There. So now when I go up with this arm, we should hear air coming out one of these two sides. Boom. Now, I'm not sure why, but we're getting air out of both sides. So I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter which one you hook up to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hook up the air dump line to this side, and then we're going to hook the air tank to this side. So let's do that. I'm going to snug it down just a little bit, so hopefully it won't leak too much air. I put some Teflon on there too. I want you guys to be able to hear when it's working. So we're not going to go crazy, but I just don't want it leaking air all over the place. That top one's leaking already. I probably should have put some Teflon on that. I don't know if you guys can hear it. We'll give it another turn or two. There we go. All right, and then we'll hook this up. So I'm curious, if we provide air to it now, we shouldn't have any air coming out. Let's see if that's what happens. Ah, see? It's not very much air pressure. It's certainly less than the 120. Let's see here. That's the 22 side. So these are marked 1, 21, and 22, whatever that means. Now maybe the position of this arm is not within tolerance. Let's see. It's letting some out the exhaust with it low. And when I come up, it stops letting it out the exhaust and it starts pushing it out here. But that's not that much pressure. I'm going to say that's maybe 30 pounds. Yeah, I don't know. Let's try hooking this tank up and see what happens. So, we'll try lowering it down. Okay, yeah, it's exhausting air. And there it's filling air. I don't know if you can hear it. So it looks like it has a tolerance right in there is off. Like that's max height. Right in there somewhere is where it's starting to drain. So it looks like it's got about a, I'm going to call it 1 inch variance in like the ride height. Now I think if I moved this rod in closer to the valve, I could tighten that up. But honestly, I don't think it really matters. One inch, I mean, if the truck rides 1 inch high or 1 inch low, which is really just a 1/2 inch either direction, that's really not that big a deal. But I am curious. Okay, so when I provide air pressure to this side, it opens up the pathway between the input air and the air bags, or in this case air tank. So that's not doing what I thought it was gonna do for some reason. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna switch. I'm gonna switch sides on this and see if it makes any difference. So air's off there, air's off there. So we'll just switch these fittings. All right. So we'll hook this up. Well, let's hook air to this and see what happens. So it's letting the air from that tank, or the airbags, aka, flow through for whatever reason. So we're gonna plug this one in, plug that one in. Now let's see what happens when I open the valve. It's doing the same thing. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know how this is supposed to work. The valve didn't come with any directions. I've said that before, but it came with 0 directions. So, unless I'm wrong here, and this is supposed to go on one of these, and then one of these is supposed to be air dump, apparently adding air, normal air, like high pressure air, to either of these ends just causes the other one to open up and let air pass through. So arguably all you would do with a separate valve is increase the amount of air in your airbags. But anyway, I don't really need the air dump system, like air dump setup anyway, because I'm going to have my own controlling to be able to dump the bags or raise the bags. So what we're probably going to do is just plug off one of these 2 sides and then hook the airbags to one of the 2. Or, you know, maybe I'm thinking all wrong on this. Maybe it's supposed to be separate airbags on either side. Like this is the left airbag and this is the right airbag, or vice versa. Maybe that's why it has 2 ports, so you don't have to T it. But either way, we're just going to use one and put a T in it, because I want to make sure both airbags have the same pressure in them. And I don't know if this is set up for a left and right airbag. I don't know if that somehow regulates the air different side to side and kind of will imbalance the airbags after a while. So we're just going to plug off one and use one, and then we'll bring it up, and actually it's going to go through a solenoid valve in the box before it actually goes to the airbags anyway. So we really only need one. So this is the box I want to put all the stuff in. This is going to be air solenoids and electrical and the pump. Comes with some hardware. Of course, I've already got it mounted up. Then it comes with this removable panel that sits in the back. But kind of my plan is, I bought this pump. It's a slightly heavier duty. Goes clear to 150. But anyway, I expect the pump to sit in there kind of like so. I might get creative and try and zip tie it or something. I don't know if it really matters. It'll probably just sit in there. And then I'm going to keep this end and use a Schrader valve to feed my air system so that I can just put it on the Schrader valve, lock it on there, and then hook the wires up, and then it'll run. That way, if the pump goes out, or I should say when the pump goes out, I can just swing by a Walmart or wherever. Yep, that's the old 945. It's not a Nate's video without a train roaring by or a semi-truck going through all 27 gears coming off the stoplight. Anyway, so I want this to be easily exchangeable. I'll probably end up doing something like wire nuts or maybe a plug even. Yeah, probably wire nuts, so that when I get a new pump, I can just cut the end off, strip the wires, wire nut it onto the other wires, and cruise on down the road. So that's going to go there. Then I got solenoid valves. There's going to be, let me get them out here. So there's going to be 3 of these. Let's start to come apart. 3 of these normally closed. This doesn't give you a direction anywhere on the valve. So I did a little bench testing on the front of my pickup yesterday by connecting the leads to the battery and hooking air pressure to it. And I figured out that the air direction is this way. So this, where the screw holes are, is the in, and then the opposite is the out. So I don't know if that makes sense looking at the end of it. This one has like a little port drilled there. This one has one right in the center. But anyway, yeah, 12 volts. It says 6.5 watts, so that's like virtually no power. Yeah, 540 milliamps, so a half amp. So 3 of these, amp and a half. And I'm planning to mount these in this back part somewhere. I'm not sure if I'll mount them that direction, this direction, this direction. We'll just have to see how it spaces out. But I'm thinking, I mean, it has holes for screws, threaded holes for screws, but I have to figure out what thread that is. And I want these to be easily exchangeable too. So I'm thinking I'll probably use this back deal and just see if I can drill a hole and zip tie these to the back plate. So I'll have like 3 of these, and these are normally closed. I think I said that already, but then I've got this normally open. These are all 1/4 inch NPT, but this is 1/4 inch. Well, you can't really see there, but it's 12 volts, DC 12 volts. I think you can see that. But in case you're looking for a valve, and this one actually is marked with direction, and this one I assume I'll probably do the same thing, where I just zip tie it to that plastic. And then, yeah, I'll have all 4 of my valves, and then somewhere in here is going to be a relay, because I don't want to run the pump. Like, I'm going to have a keyed and switched source of power for the pump operation. So I'm going to run the pump through a relay, the hot side, which now that I look at it, I think is this ribbed cord is the positive, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it doesn't even matter. I don't want it to vacuum my whole system out. But anyway, so yeah, I'll have a relay in here somewhere, just like a 4-pin relay. And then also there will be some sort of inline fuse going for this system. And then all of the air lines are obviously going to come in here and attach to the valves. And then also all the electrical is going to come in. And I think I've come up with an answer for the electrical. I've got some 7-wire trailer cord, like taillight cord. So it's, I guess, I don't know if you would call it like an SO cord, maybe. But it's 7 wires, placed inside of a rubber coated cord that I think I'm going to run from here into the cab, because we're going to need at least 4 wires, one for each of those solenoids to activate, and then we're going to need 1 more wire for a ground. And I don't know if I'll run 2 grounds, because I don't know if I want to run the ground for this on the same ground for the solenoids, but at least 4 solenoids, a activation wire for the relay for this pump, a separate power wire, that's 5, 6, a separate power wire is number 6 for the pump. And then I thought there was 1 more. 4, maybe it's just 6. Either way, it should work perfect, rather than having to pull all different cords. Plus the trailer cord will be different colored wires, so I'll be able to keep my coloring straight and be able to just look at it and be like, oh, okay, you know, red is this valve, blue, brown, yellow, green, so on and so forth. And it'll be easy to hook up inside the truck that way too. So that's the plan. And then, well, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the idea is then this will all fit inside here, close up, latch closed, and then it'll just look like that. So if I have any problems with the system, for the most part, I'll be able to just come out here, open the box, and I'll look at that fuse, and then I can start doing testing on valves and stuff like that. So now we get to start drilling and figure out how we're going to actually do this. All right, so got my little makeshift work table here. We're going to install some of these. I decided on these 90-degree fittings, 1/4 inch NPT, 1/4 inch push connect or whatever. And they come with a coating on them already, but I put some Teflon focus. But I put some Teflon on there just to help the process. The reason I'm going with 90s is because they're going to be tied against the back wall, kind of like so, and these 90s twist, so I can have the air lines come kind of push into the front of the valve, and then it'll come out and turn. Probably all the air lines and the electrical is going to go to one corner of the box. So anyway, I started to do something. Where's my wrench? Anyway. Alright, so we'll just snug her down good. Assuming I got the right wrench. Trick here is to go good and tight, but not crazy. And we'll do the other side. Stubborn. That Teflon can make it a little tough to get the thing started. Oh, I got my vice grip wrong too. I need to go that way. Make my life a little easier. How tight can you go before the valve body splits in half? I'll go a little more on this one. Yeah, I think we're going to stop in there somewhere. All right, and then that's going to be mounted on this, kind of like so. So my plan is, whoops, it's going to be mounted on this, kind of like so. And my plan is to drill these little squares, a couple of them up to 1/4 inch, so I can do a zip tie. And I think I'm going to do it right underneath the valves, right underneath the fittings rather, and just do a zip tie around it. And then later, if I need to, I can always cut it, put a new one in, and move on. But putting it underneath, it'll help hold it this way. So then the valves will be upside down, so I don't know. I assume I'll tighten that nut down. I don't know what size it is. Approximately 1/4. So hopefully heat and vibration won't cause that nut to back off and these to start falling off. If it does, I might have to do a lock washer or something, thread lock or something on there. But anyway, yeah. So let's see here. I don't know if you guys can see, but we've got about a 1/2 inch past the end of the box. So I'm gonna give myself a little extra room. So I'm gonna go, well, you know what? We got that screw under there too. We're gonna go with this top inside corner. See if we can drill it up to 1/4 without busting this thing all to pieces. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then, which one do I drill? We're gonna go with this one right here. And a zip tie, kind of like so. You know what? To make it a little fancier, we're gonna go the other way. Maybe. I'm doing all this for you guys, trying to keep it on camera. And this way, the little latch part will be behind, so when you look at the valve, all you see is one strap. Oh yeah, we're fancy. Doesn't want to cooperate. Sorry. Focus, you bastard. Okay. So, something like that. That should leave me enough room. I can still put that screw in the corner. Right there. And yeah. I'm wondering, I'm going to slide this all the way to one side. And then we're going to get a little physical and see if I can snap this zip tie. Okay, I think that'll work. So it'll look something like that. I'll get a little farther away here. So hopefully there's enough room I can do 4 of these. I guess I should have checked that out earlier. We might stagger them too. Do one up here and one down here, and then one, and one. So I'm in process here trying to do the layout, and I think I'm going to do something like that. But then we got this ridiculous size valve, which might go in, there we go, which might go in upside down like this. We'll see. I'm probably going to zip tie it, but I was thinking about using the actual bolts or the actual screw holes that are on these, but I'm like, I have no idea what fastener that is. So I figured this is an opportunity to try something else I bought on Amazon. Ta-da! This actually gives you a bunch of standard and metric threads. I don't know how well this is going to come through on the camera. And it's upside down. Okay, let me put this valve back down. We're going to choose a larger one. Like here's a, what is that, 1/2 inch? Okay. Come on, stubborn. So it tells you on the side, 1/2, 13. And that gives you, if you have a bolt you want to find out what size it is, you can thread it in there. If you got a female side only, you can do the male side to find out what size it is, which is what we're going to use. So the silver ones are SAE, and then these black ones are metric. And it's got quite a few sizes. I mean, there's probably other sizes. I want to say this was maybe 20, 25 bucks or something. But I'm thinking this is going to be standard. And we're going to try checking this brass valve out first. And I tried a 1024 bolt that I had laying around, and it didn't go for that. So I'm wondering if it's this 1032. So let's try it and see. Yeah, buddy. That's her. So if I wanted to fasten it with screws, I could use that. Then I could, at this point I could go to the hardware store and be like, yeah, it's a 1032 upside down. Upside down. Anyway, Then we've got these other ones that I'm curious about. I'm wondering if these are going to be metric, but let's try that 10. Looking at them, I'm pretty sure they're fine thread. Let's try that 1032 again. How sweet would it be? Nope. Let's try, we got a 6 and an 8, both 32s. Let's try one of those. Oh, that feels like it's going. Yeah, that's not right. So it's around a number 8, and the 6 is too small. So it's going to be something metric, I'm guessing. Not a big surprise. Let's try this one. It seems sloppy. I'll thread her on down some and see if it's still, well, is it bottoming out? Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, that might be it. I don't know if their thread tolerance was pretty wide. But I think if I was going to buy one, it would be this one. And it's a M4 0.7 or 0.7. So I'm just curious, that 832, yeah, so it gets like 1.5 threads and starts to bind up. So anyway, I wanted to show you guys this thing. I think it's pretty good. This is the first time I've used it, actually. I will say it's nice that all of these are fastened on here, but it almost makes it a little bit awkward. Like if I was trying to, like if these valves were already mounted on there and I'm trying to put it on, like I'm gonna have to turn this whole deal to get it to screw in, which is gonna be a hassle. So I almost wish there was a way to take these off, or that they had their own separate clips that you clip them on and unclip them, or something like that. But overall, it does the job. If you're in a bind and you're really trying to figure out what threads are on something, this I think works pretty well. This is what it worked out to look like. I think it came out all right. Pretty fancy. Got all my zip ties on there. I added a relay to this end. I didn't have any 4-prong relays, so I just did 5. But I ended up inverting these to kind of push this stuff over, because I think I want the air lines and the electrical coming in this corner somewhere. Then of course the compressor is going to sit down here. So let me put it in the box. All right, there's what it looks like installed. It's not all that fancy. All this is going to be wiring spaghetti. I'm planning on cutting a hole in this side of the box to run the air lines through, and also the electrical cord. And then I found a inline fuse that'll let me put a fuse in there. That'll fuse to this relay. You know, I'm not sure if this is going to go in this box. I might actually be wiser putting that out by the battery, where I'm going to connect the power line coming back here. So this might not be in the box. We'll see. And yeah, then we'll have that cord come in. The hoses will come in. I don't know, there might be a couple T's inside this box. I haven't really decided. I need to look at the plumbing and figure out what I'm going to do there. Probably work on that next, but I wanted to give you guys a look at kind of what it looks like with all the equipment essentially installed. I'm probably going to drill some holes in the bottom of this just to vent it a little bit, and then if there's a hole here, I'll probably try to cover it up the best I can, but hopefully that'll let a little heat as this pump heats up, let air go out the back and come, you know, up through those holes in the bottom. And then I might put a couple of 1/4-inch holes strategically so that I can zip tie this pump down to the box. That way while I'm driving, it's not bouncing around inside that plastic box, or while it's running, it's not bouncing around. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm always surprised when I stumble upon a YouTube creator who has millions of subscribers and has been producing videos for years, completely unknown to me. I would like to help correct this issue by giving some of my favorite creators a shout out during my videos. To that end, I would like to take this opportunity to spotlight one of my fellow YouTube creators, someone I personally subscribe to. If you find my content interesting, please consider going down to the video's description and follow the link I have placed there. The link will take you to today's chosen creator. But for now, please stay tuned for any bloopers related to this video. Thank you, everyone. Wait till this loud, noisy truck goes on by. He's still screaming it out. All right. And then I got this locking